So, John, we have to start out with Marcus and Marcus, right? I mean, that's really been the biggest changes. Those are two players that we felt like at least one had the energy. The other one was the best Celtics player, arguably, through the first 20 games of the season coming off the bench. Some questions about whether that would reduce the scoring for the bench unit, some concerns about whether or not he would be able to keep up that pace against opposing starting lineups. But the truth is he's still finding himself wide open. He's absolutely clutch from beyond the arc, obviously talking about Marcus Morris Senior. And then we have Marcus Smart, who all of a sudden is hitting his three-pointers, man. He's hitting his three-pointers.
Senor?
You're not going to just let me slide that in there.
No, I'm not. I can't. I just, it's there, you know. No, they're both, they've both provided what the Celtics have needed. And it's funny to say that Morris would be that among that group. Smart, I think, is a little bit easier to understand. He's, he's a ball handler. He's a guy who makes the right play. He is prone to take maybe too many shots, but he's someone who really knows how to manufacture or run the offense. I think he's a good playmaker, and defensively, certainly we know what he can do, and the fact he just makes winning plays, rebounding, whatever is needed, he does.
Well, speaking of winning plays, probably one of the best moments of basketball in the last, I'd say, almost several years in terms of just creativity. But getting the deflection, falling to the ground, the ball gets tapped right back into his hands, fires it from his back down the court, an absolute strike to Tatum, who dumps it off to Morris, then finds good position, takes the alley-oop, and knocks it down. That was just really a pretty play. Obviously, there's nobody listening to this show that hasn't seen that. It was all over Twitter, all over everywhere. But just what creativity. And that's that I think Scalabrini talked about during the game about how Marcus is always looking where other guys are well before the ball even gets into his hands. It's like he knows where they are on the court. Those are the kinds of things you and I have been talking about for a long time in our defense of him, considering his shooting woes through the first 4 years of his career.
Yeah, I mean, he has an innate sense about him. It's the only thing that makes sense in terms of him being a guy who makes these winning plays, right? He has to have this kind of, geometrical just sense about him where he can lay out the geography of the court and where the important landmarks are and sees things ahead. That's the only thing that makes sense for players who do what he does. Players like Rondo, players like Bird, players like, Magic, who just have this innate sense within them that things happen. And of course, I'm not saying Smart is in that category. That would be insane. But in terms of the winning plays aspect, would it surprise you to see an Eastern Conference Finals game and see Marcus Smart steal the ball like Bird did in '87, and find DJ for the cutter? I mean, you can see that in your mind's eye. Celtics fans have all seen Smart do those types of things. Why couldn't he have that same sort of impact? I think we all know that's possible, and that's the only thing that makes sense. You introduce that to the starting lineup. You got Mook, who's ISO a little bit less and is more catch and shoot with that group, and things just start to fall into place.
Is not hot dog in it. He's not hoarding shots. Like all the things that people might have said against his favor in the second unit, where he maybe forces some stuff, he is 100% like just knows exactly what role he's supposed to be playing. He's committing much more defensively and turning it around, even rebounding. I know they're not all going to him. Kyrie has been obviously committing himself defensively, but he's getting a lot of those longer rebounds. And I think that also has a lot to do with Marcus Morris being in there and that toughness. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I know that Baines got the call on Friday night with Horford getting some rest. They're going to need to do that from time to time for sure. And, they talked about it and basically said, looking at the schedule, even though they'd had 3 days off leading up to that game, there's just certain nights when you think you might be able to get away with it. And for the older guys, and Horford is the oldest guy, you got to get them rest when you can get them. And so they did it then. Obviously, it didn't hurt them. They had a great night against the Cavs. But I think Marcus Morris might need to be staying in that starting lineup. I know everybody was concerned about it. It'll depend a lot on Gordon Hayward, who just had a triple-double. So he's going to be fighting his way back in there. But it's hard to look at either one of those players and yank them out of the starting lineup. I mean, I think ultimately it's probably going to have to be Morris, but maybe they'll flip and flop with the Marcuses.